Have you ever wondered if the biggest, most public displays of faith are actually the least sincere? Well, that's the core of what we're breaking down today. We're digging into a pretty provocative argument from a source video that claims exactly that, taking a theological scalpel to public acts of Muslim prayer and fasting.
So the source video we're looking at kicks things off with this powerful and, controversial idea it calls the theater of piety. The whole concept is that some religious acts are designed more for the audience than for God. And it uses this exact framework to deconstruct events like the mass prayers you see right here in Times Square.
All right, so where does this critique even begin? The source first takes aim at the very public act of prayer. It uses these large Muslim prayer gatherings as a key example to build its case against what it considers to be performative piety.
Now, the entire foundation for this argument, it all rests on a specific interpretation of the Christian Gospel of Matthew. The creator of the video is basically using this ancient text as a tool to critique modern religious practices that, in their view, are just being done for show.
And this is the verse right here that the whole argument really hinges on. It's a warning, right? Don't be like the hypocrites who love praying on street corners for the sole purpose of being seen by others. For the source video, this is the smoking gun. It argues this verse perfectly describes what it sees in public Islamic prayer. So, what does that actually mean? Well, according to the source, this verse frames public prayer as a kind of spiritual transaction. If you're looking for applause from the people in the street, that applause is all you're going to get. Any reward from God, it argues, is completely off the table.
Okay, so from prayer, the source pivots to another pillar of public faith, fasting, and it zeroes in on the Muslim observance of Ramadan. The logic it applies here is exactly the same. Something that's meant to be private has been turned into a public spectacle.
And yep, the source goes right back to Matthew chapter 6. This time, it points to the instruction to anoint your head and wash your face, so your fasting isn't obvious to other people. The message it's pushing is crystal clear. Just like prayer, fasting is supposed to be a private devotion between you and God, not an advertisement of your struggle.
But hold on, the argument doesn't stop there. It goes a step further. The source doesn't just criticize the public nature of the fast, it makes the much bolder claim that Ramadan, as it sees it being practiced, isn't really fasting at all.
To get this idea across, the source actually coins a new and deliberately provocative term you see here, trans fasting, and it's defined as, and I'm quoting here, feasting that identifies as fasting. And the video uses visuals like this to really drive the point home, contrasting images of daytime sleep with nighttime feasting. It frames the entire practice as a cycle of binge eating and sleeping, and then asks a pretty pointed question. Is this really a sacrifice?
So here's how the source breaks down the daily cycle of Ramadan. You gorge with food at night, you gorge with more food in the early morning, and then you sleep all day. And then you repeat. The video then makes the sweeping claim that this is a historical anomaly, stating no one else in the history of the world thinks you're fasting when you're feasting.
So after deconstructing public prayer and fasting through its own theological lens, the source pulls back to deliver its final, and its most damning, verdict on the religion as a whole. And this quote right here really sums up the source's conclusion. By its logic, if a religion encourages acts of righteousness to be seen by others, then that religion, it argues, is guilty of hypocrisy, according to the very words of Jesus.
This all leads to the source's ultimate theological conclusion. It presents this stark contrast. On one side, what it sees is Jesus' command for private worship, and on the other, the public practices it's been critiquing. Because it views these as the exact opposite, it goes so far as to label Islam an antichrist religion.
The video doesn't just end with a question, it ends with a command. It frames the entire religious system as a show, a performance, and it calls on viewers to leave what it calls pagan hypocrisy behind and embrace a faith that it claims rewards what is done in secret.
So after laying out this entire argument from the source video, we're left to confront a pretty difficult question, one that really goes beyond any single religion. Where is the line between a genuine public expression of faith and a performance for the crowd? That's a question we're thinking about.